Welcome to the final part of the series of the Active Directory Project 2.0. If you haven't seen the previous parts where we go over how to build out a diagram for this project, install our virtual machines, configure Active Directory, and Splunk, I highly recommend that you go and watch those first to get up to speed. Today's objective is to integrate both Slack and Shuffle for automation and response. We will be building a mini responsive playbook where it will automatically disable a domain user account if there was an unauthorized successful login detected. Before we jump in, if you're an aspiring SOC analyst and want a one-stop shop to learn the skills required to become an amazing SOC analyst, I do have a course called the MyDFIR SOC Analyst course, where I will walk you through on how you can investigate suspicious activity. And you also get to complete 5 exclusive SOC projects that I only provide in that course and many more. You can find more information down below. Let's get started. To get started, you want to type in shuffle SOAR and click on the shuffle automation. From here, go ahead and create an account if you haven't done so already. Once you have created an account, you'll see the screen right here. What you want to do is click on workflows on the left-hand side, and let's click on create workflow. The name is going to be MyDFIR AD-project 2.0, and then click on save changes. And this is where we start building our mini playbook, or in this case, a workflow. Now, the first thing I want to do here is grab a webhook, and this is essentially going to be our Splunk alert. So if I select the webhook, I'm going to name this as Splunk-alert. And let's copy the webhook URI. Head back to my Splunk, and let's click on our search and reporting. Head over to alerts, and under our alert that we created in part 4, I'm going to select edit and edit alert. Let's add an action, and I will select webhook. Go ahead and paste in the shuffle webhook and hit save. Now, I did disable the alert, so let me just go ahead and re-enable it. And now, hopefully, if I still get an event, my shuffle should then capture the alert. But before I do that, I must select start. Otherwise, it is in a stop state, and shuffle will not be listening with this particular webhook. So let's go ahead and click on start. Once I successfully start the webhook, now shuffle is going to be opened to receive any alerts that are generated from our Splunk instance. And now that I verified that the alerts are indeed generating, I can go back over to my shuffle, click on the explore runs, and I do see a webhook right here. Well, I do see 2, so that's perfect. And it makes sense because there are currently 2 alerts. And if I expand one of them, I can see my search name and the IP address along with our user and logon type. I'll go ahead and stop the webhook so it stops listening. I will also disable my alert as well. I'll go into my search and reporting, go over to my apps, edit, and disable. Because I don't really need that anymore. Now that I have my Splunk alert event within Shuffle, let's open up our diagram that we created in part 1. Go back to draw.io, and I'll open it from my device. So this right here is the diagram, and we're essentially going to be building out this part right here. So our Shuffle, Slack, and email notification. Once the alert gets triggered, an alert notification should be sent over to Slack. Now I do have this coming from Splunk, but instead let's do this from Shuffle. Let me throw that over here and move this over. Yeah, this works. It's fine. Let's see if there's a Slack application that Shuffle has. Search up for Slack, and it does. Perfect. Let's drag that over to our workflow. And you know what? I am going to remove this change me here. Slack 1. So I'll click on that, change the name. This is going to be our alert dash notification. And we do need to authenticate with Slack. Now, if you don't have an account, we can create one for free. Search up slack.com and click on get started. Enter in your email address. Now I am using a disposable email, so if you're wondering why it looks really funky, That is why. Once we signed into Slack, we can now create a workspace. And the name of the company is going to be called MyDFIR-Projects. I do not want anybody with this email address to join this workspace. Click on next. It is very likely that you cannot use the same name as mine, so just name it to whatever you want. Click on next and skip this step. Skip step. What else here? Start with the limited free version and exit this out. Now we have Slack ready to go. Go back over to our shuffle workflow and let's authenticate with Slack. Click on one-click login and we can see our workspace right here at the top, the MyDFIR-Projects. And Shuffle SOAR bot is requesting permission. And let's say allow. I believe that's about it. Actually, how does it know which channel to post on? Okay, I see. I am going to head over to my Slack and let's create a new channel. So click on channels, create channel, and we'll just select a blank channel. And the channel name is going to be called alerts. Typically, you would put it to private and only allow the SOC analyst to view it, but let's just leave it as public for now. And this is the channel that I want all of my alerts to be posted in. And if I take a look at the Slack app, if we scroll down, we do have an option called channel. So this is where we're going to be putting in our alerts channel. So the Shuffle bot will know to post it in that particular channel. Okay, so the Splunk alert gets generated and it will send a notification over to Slack. Let's connect that over and let's test this out. The username and the other stuff here, we don't really need to change anything except for the text. So the text here, we are going to say, actually, before I do that, I am going to rerun my workflow. The reason why I want to do this is because when it reruns, I can now see the data within Slack. For example, if I were to click on the plus button and head over to runtime arguments, I can now see the time, computer name, source address, user, and logon type. If I didn't rerun it, I wouldn't have seen anything. And I kind of wish I did that. That way you could see what I meant. But anyways, you're going to have to trust me. Under the text option, I am going to type in alert and let's put in our alert name. So I'll click on the plus, runtime argument, and yeah, search name is essentially the alert name that Splunk had generated. I'll do a space and a \n for a new line. I think we also want the time. Go over to runtime argument and the underscore time. Let's do the same thing again, \n. What other fields do we want? Definitely the user. Click on the plus again, runtime argument, click on user. And let's do the source IP. The last thing we need to do here is making sure our channel is specified here. To grab our channel ID, we must head over to our Slack. And if you take a look at the URI, we can see that there is a unique identifier here. This is essentially your channel ID. So if I were to click on all MyDFIR projects, the channel ID would change. If I go back over to alerts, so this right here is the one that I want. Because again, I want all of the alerts to be posted under this alert channel. Go back to my shuffle, paste in the channel ID, and hopefully, if I save this out, let's try rerunning this. Once that is done, click on my Slack. Perfect. We get an alert saying MyDFIR unauthorized successful login RDP with the time, user, and source IP. Now this time is an epoch time format. I'll leave this as a challenge for you to change it to human readable format. Let's take a look at our diagram. Now we got the alert notification. The next one is an email notification. Okay, going back over to Shuffle, we want an email notification saying, hey, do you want to disable the user of interest? That is going to be a user input, and that is under the triggers. So this one right here, user input, drag that over to our workflow, and I'll change the name to, I guess, user action is okay. Let's change the question to, would you like to disable the user? I'm not going to select the subflow, but I am going to select email because we want to email this over to the SOC analyst. Now this ideally should be a shared email address. That way anybody on shift can see it, but I'm going to enter in my disposable temporary email. Let's connect our Slack over to that user action and save it out. And let's rerun our workflow. That's good to go. Taking a look at my mailbox, I do not see anything yet. Oh, there it is. Let me refresh. Click on the email and wow, this is very messy. Action required. Would you like to disable the user? And it has everything here. You know what? I'm not going to clean it up. I think just leaving this as is good enough. We do know for a fact that this works. But if you did want to clean it up, you can change it through here. So instead of just showing everything, you could instead show, let's say, the source IP address. And to get that value, you'll just need to go over to your alert notification on your Slack app and just take a look at how it's formatted. So the source IP is formatted as exec.result.source_network_address. So if we only wanted to show the source IP address, we could have just done it like that. But instead, I think it's fun to just leave it as everything. Cool. Now we know that our email works. What's next? Send an email to SOC Analyst asking if they want to disable the user. If yes, then disable the domain account. Let's build that one out first. To disable an account in Active Directory, you would need to have some kind of connection towards LDAP. Let's see if there is any application for Windows. There's Microsoft Defender. What about Active Directory? Oh, perfect. There's Active Directory. Let's drag that over. I do not want to connect this to Slack. How do I delete this? Interesting. I cannot delete it. That is so weird. What's happening? Okay, you know what? Let me save this out and let's refresh our shuffle. Now, if I drag the Active Directory, it is still automatically being connected. Delete branch. Oh, finally. Okay. That was so weird. I want to connect my user input to Active Directory because depending on the user, if they say yes, they want to disable, it will then move over to Active Directory and then perform its function to disable the user. Clicking on the app, we do have a couple of options. There is an action to find user attributes. There's also set password, enable user, and disable user. This is what we want. We want to disable the user. But before we do that, we do need to authenticate. And let's take a look here. Server, we'll need to point this over to our domain controller. Taking a look at my domain controller's public IP address, it is this one right here, ending in 136. And the port for LDAP by default is 389. So let's type in 389. The domain is MyDFIR. Oh, this is terrible practice, but the logon user is administrator. And the password, go over to the domain controller, copy the password, paste that in. For our base DN, we can find this information if we go over to our domain controller. I'll open up PowerShell. I'll type in get-ad domain. And the one that we're interested in is the user container. So right here, cn equal users, dc equal MyDFIR, dc equal local. That is the one we want. Let's paste that into our base DN. And for the use SSL, let's go ahead and say true and hit submit. For the account name, we do want to select the user. And oh, actually, if you recall, I mentioned the reason why I wanted to rerun the workflow. And since I refreshed my shuffle, I no longer have the data. So I can show you an example. If I click on the plus button and go over to runtime argument, I get nothing. But if I were to rerun our workflow, click on finished. So the first one right here, if I rerun this, and if I click on my Active Directory, click on the plus again, runtime argument, we now have data. So that is why I wanted to rerun my workflow. But since we're here, the account name is going to be our user, which is J Smith. And let's try disabling the user. Save this out. And to test this out, I am going to remove this branch and this branch as well. I do not need the user input just for now. Let's remove the Slack branch as well. Just connect my webhook over to Active Directory. So immediately, once I rerun this workflow, the user should be disabled. Let's rerun this. And if I scroll down, show skipped actions, we get a skipped because it's not under the start node. I may need to, you know what, let's try this one more time. I may need to connect Slack and then connect it over to my Active Directory. Unless I just simply rerun this workflow. Oh, nice. Okay, it is executing, so it's taking some time. I don't think this is going to work because my port of 389 is not opened. But we're not getting a skipped anymore, so that's good. Now, I know I went a little bit quicker than usual and I might have lost you, but essentially what I did was if you take a look at these workflows, there is a play icon and then there is a webhook icon. I didn't do the play icon because in memory, I believe, this is just me thinking out loud, I believe that it's running Slack first and then going over to my user input. But because I removed the branches and all that stuff, it was giving me an error on my Active Directory saying that it's not the start node. So what I did was I just started from scratch and I reran a workflow where it was just the webhook. It didn't include Slack or anything else. And when I did that, Shuffle was like, okay, that looks good. Let's move on to Active Directory. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm just yapping here. Is my workflow still executing? Go over to executing. It is. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, let's go over to my Vultr and go to network, firewall, pencil icon, and let's enable, you know what? Let's have some fun. I'm enabling everything. 5535. Was it? Or is it? I think that's it. 65535. Oh man, my Splunk and everything is going to get accessed. But that's the beauty of a project, right? Go ahead and break things. I'm going to abort the workflow and let's try this one more time. Rerun? Does that work? Okay, so that doesn't work, or it's taking a lot longer than I thought it would. This tells me a couple things. One, either my Active Directory is incorrectly configured or hasn't been configured yet for SSL, which is quite likely. And the other one is my authentication for Active Directory is not successful. Let's abort this workflow. Click on my Active Directory application and let's create another authentication. Let's name this as new underscore auth. For my server IP, it is 155. Perfect. It's right here. 389. My MyDFIR is the domain. Logon user is administrator. The password base DN is right here. And what if I say false and hit submit? And rather than disabling user, let's just do a user attributes. And this will essentially just get the user information. Save that out and let's play it out. Okay, so that finished pretty quickly. An exception occurred while running this function. List index out of range. I'm so silly. Okay, I forgot that there is a search base here. Let me go back over to my Active Directory. Let's copy this and let's paste that in the search base. Now, save it out. Fingers crossed. Let's rerun our workflow. List index out of range. Oh, okay. I am failing this project. I apologize. So there is nothing under my runtime argument. All right. You know what? Let's start from scratch. I am going to save it out and let's rerun a webhook. I'll just select the first one at the bottom, rerun that. I should get information, but there is going to be, oh, whoa, automatic bind not successful, invalid credentials. Ooh. But what I was going to say is that I should now get data under my runtime argument. Select the user. Let's remove that. I don't know why it appended. Save and rerun. Okay, I'm still getting invalid credentials, but we're getting somewhere. As a test, I am going to create a new account. Click on user, Just name this as Steven Smith. And the username is Steven. Click on next. Put in our password, a super secure password. And I just want to test. So I am going to throw this person as domain admin. Ooh, give them all the privilege. Now, if I try and re-authenticate, let's do update new auth. For the server, it's going to be that 389. For the logon user, let's do Steven. The password is my super secure password. The base DN is that. And let's do false for SSL. Kind of wish there was like a confirm authentication, but unfortunately there's not. Now if I were to rerun this, do I get anything juicy? Perfect. Look at that. Okay, so we know that our connection is working. I love it. Although the new user is a domain admin and my domain controller is exposed to the internet for anybody to access, still, I'm happy that this connection works. Now that I think about it, this could be a fun exercise to tighten our security controls going forward. But I don't want to make this project too long, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish up the playbook. Now that I know the user attributes work, finally, let's delete the branch and let's rebuild everything. So I'm going to connect my webhook back to my Slack. I am going to connect my Slack to the user input. User input is going to go over to Active Directory. Active Directory is no longer going to check for user attributes. Instead, it is going to disable the user. And once it disables the user, we are going to do another notification. I'll say update Slack or update notification. And essentially it's going to say, what did our diagram say? Account name has been disabled. Okay, account colon, and let's put in our user has been disabled. And this will be under the channel of the alerts. Just like that. Save this out. And you know what? Let's generate a new alert. So I'm going to click on start for the webhook. Why did my name change? I'm pretty sure I changed the webhook name to Splunk Alert or something like that. It's been way too long. But let's go back to my Splunk. And it is disabled, so we need to re-enable that. And just for testing purposes, let's go over to search for the last 24 hours. Hit save. That way our alert should definitely generate within 24 hours. While we wait for that, let's head over to our Active Directory. And if we take a look, currently Jenny Smith's account is enabled. By the way, if the account is disabled, you will see a down arrow icon next to the person. Okay, cool. So we do get a notification. Before I get bombarded with a ton of alerts, let's disable our alert. We get our alert notification. And if we go over to the inbox, we can see, hey, would you like to disable the user? And again, if I go back over to my domain controller, I can see that the account is still enabled. If this is true, click this. Now I can't really click it, so instead I'm just gonna copy it and let's paste it in here. Would you like to disable the user? Continue. Oh, okay, it's already clicked. Makes sense, because I did copy the true and pasted it in, so it automatically clicked it for me. Going over to Slack, I should get a notification saying that the user is disabled, but I am not. Okay, let's stop this right here. Okay, why is that? Update notification, the channel is there. Authentication is valid. Why do I not get an update? But is the account disabled? Let's refresh this. The account is still enabled, so my workflow has a problem somewhere. I'll save this workflow and let's refresh it. And clicking on the Explore Runs, let's rerun this webhook. So our status is waiting for the SOC Analyst input, but we should get an alert notification on our Slack. And interesting, we get this. Okay, something's going extremely wrong here. Let's copy that. So that should have been disabled. And now if we refresh this, our Jenny Smith's account is disabled. Okay, but our Slack message fired off earlier than expected. We need to change that. But at least we know that the disable action works. I'll re-enable this account by right-clicking and enable account. And we will need to change a bit of the workflow. Okay, so what I'll be doing here is I'll add in a tool that will check to see if the account is disabled or not. Let's remove this branch. I am going to keep the repeat back to me. Check AD user. Let's add in another Active Directory application here. And this is going to say get user dash attributes. And let's connect this over. So essentially what I want to build out here is that once we choose to disable the user, Active Directory will then check the user's attributes. And if it is under the status of disabled, it will then go out and update our Slack. The account name is going to be the user, and the search base, let's copy this one right here. And I'll make sure to select the authentication as our update new auth, because we know for sure that this one works. Now for the repeat back to me, the check AD user, I am going to select, you know what, before we even do that, let's save this out and let's try this again. We get a notification. I'm going to copy this and let's try that. The account is disabled, so then it should move on to the get user attribute. Now we can click on check AD user, click on the plus button, and under the get user attributes, we do have some stuff here. Now, where does it say disabled or active? There doesn't really seem like there is a field that will tell me if Jenny's account is disabled. Or at least I can't see anything here, except user account control. User account control, maybe that's it. If I search up user account control, do I get anything here? We do see a property flag. And if I scroll down, okay, we might be able to use this right here, account disable. So I will select the plus, get user attributes, select the user account control. Now let's try starting our webhook one more time and enable my alert. Ooh, I do need to make sure the account is enabled. So currently it is disabled. I'll click on enable account. And now we just wait. We do get a inbox notification, so that's good. Clicking on that, I am going to copy the link, click on go to link, and that should automatically disable our user account. Just to double check, let's refresh this, and Jenny Smith is indeed disabled. Going back over to the workflow, let's see here. Is there any attribute under my user account control? And there is none. Why is that? Okay, so I was taking a look at the details, and right here, it actually shows user account control where it has account disabled. Interesting. And if I click on the check 8, wow, why do I have so many of these? Let me remove that. Actually, let's remove all of it. If I click on the plus icon and go over to get user attributes, yeah, there's nothing under the user account control. But if I took a look at the details, it was there. If I connect this and click on the line, select new condition, let's say contains account disabled. And what we want to look for is the user attributes. So if I go back over and just copy this, and I'll say if this particular user attributes under the user account control contains account disabled, then update my Slack. Because again, if I go over to my workflow and if I scroll down to the get user attributes, I actually see the account disabled. Whoops, I did not mean to copy it, but right here, I see the account disabled. So it exists. But I don't know why I don't see it under the check AD user. Moment of truth. Let's try it out. Click on my workflow. It is currently started. And let's make sure my account is not disabled, which it is. So let me go ahead and re-enable it and let's refresh it. We are ready to go. And we'll just wait and see what happens. I do need to enable the alert. All right, my Slack got a notification and we should be getting an email shortly. Perfect. Go ahead and open that up. And let's disable the account. Now that it's disabled, ooh, okay, we're getting somewhere. Account J Smith has been disabled. Nice. Oh, this feels so good. Okay. Wow. Was that a fluke? Did my thing actually work? Okay, you know what? I need to try this one more time. So if I refresh, yes, okay, it is disabled. Let's re-enable the account. And yeah, look at that. There is no message saying that the account has been disabled. It's just the alert. If you recall, last time, it just spat out everything. It gave us the alert notification and the message saying the account was disabled. But we didn't want that. We only wanted to send a message that the account was disabled when the analyst says, yes, go ahead and disable it. Just to make sure that it works. And I am really hoping that this does work. I am going to say false. And what this is going to do is that it shouldn't send anything. Nice. There's nothing that says the account has been disabled. I mean, there is the previous message, but that's besides the point. Okay, if I go to my inbox, go to the latest alert. Now if I say disable the account, we should get a account has been disabled. Yes. Yes, that's so awesome. Okay, and if I were to refresh, oh, that is amazing. Wow. If you followed along, congratulations on completing the Active Directory Project 2.0, and I hope that you had as much fun as I did creating this. We went over a ton of material and it can get pretty technical very quickly, but that's okay. If you enjoyed this, I would highly encourage you to take a look at the other projects that I have on my channel so you can build up an impressive portfolio. Again, if you want a one-stop shop to learn the skills to become an amazing SOC analyst, do check out the MyDFIR SOC Analyst course, which is listed down below. There is no monthly subscription, so once you purchase it, it's yours for life. It would mean a lot to me if you shared this project or even my channel with other aspiring analysts who want to get some hands-on experience. Because at the end of the day, we are all on the same team. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to stay curious and do things differently.